Wow, Post Legacy of Destruction still holds quite some surprises, with Purrely taking the lead today. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. As per usual, check out Kong's Cards. They actually ran this event. We had 32 people for this one, a little bit smaller than the past one that we had, but that's fine. This was super short minute yet again. So for this event, Snake Eyes Fire King actually had your highest seeded representation out here, which is kind of interesting because we went from Snake Eyes just getting absolutely decimated to suddenly the deck is back in full swing here, which I find that to be very interesting. But I mean, the deck didn't win the event, so that's fine. All right, we also had one pure Snake Eyes, so you had 3 Snake Eyes decks in your top cut, but this deck has been reduced to a former shell of itself, and I honestly do think that it is super good to see what players are kind of adapting towards out here and so forth. And actually, to a big surprise for me, top 4, we actually had a branded duelist. It's been a little while. Last event, branded didn't perform quite so well, but I am really happy to see that that deck is still here. We also had a Yubel duelist stepping up into the arena and doing well. Tierlaments also made a very nice showcasing out of this event. And we also had Purrely as well. Purrely actually was the underdog contender for this, and the deck actually showcased that it could smash through through this event super easily. And we had a Raidraptor duelist as well. One thing I do want to point out here, you know, we just went from an event where Tempai Dragons were the dominating force, and then all of a sudden, you blink through this event, there is no Tempai Dragon at all here. And that's actually a very polarizing effect of this meta. Also, watching Purrely be able to set up these insanely huge fields, I do think that Purrely might actually be a very solid contender here, but I think it's going to take the right duelist trying to figure out what to do with the deck to really make the difference. Let's pass on over to those deck lists. So winning this event is actually Purrely showcasing, I see we're main decking a copy of Rivalry of the Warlords in here as well. You know, you've got to appreciate the fact that generic floodgates still do exist. We're only playing 2 copies of Purrely Lily, which is kind of understandable, because honestly, Purrely is basically, I feel like, the heart and soul of this deck. Getting back the second Delicious Memory, I think, really did help out the consistency of this deck. Now, this deck having to play the Relinquished Anima over the Lingeribo, I think is fine. I also find interesting that to Hearken here, being a free, revive of an opponent's optional card, so you can kind of have the additional resource, is actually pretty strong. And of course, we've seen how good SP Little Knight actually functions within the course of the meta. Only one Purrely Leap, honestly, that's all you need. If you're not finishing up the game, you'll be just fine. I see that we are citing the Shifters. This deck has a major advantage right now, because nobody's citing Herald or any cards to kind of devastate this deck away from these huge boss monsters. So that's actually pretty cool to mention. All right, our second place list here. Yes. Good old Snake Eyes Diabellstar out here. The crystallized extender for the deck. Still doing the 2 Karens. We are playing 1 copy of Arvada. The build's actually interesting because they are playing the 2 copies of Ghost Ogre in here. Ghost Ogre actually kind of getting some quite interesting mileage out here. I do see that this build is actually making its rounds, citing the Fucho down here. Honestly, Fucho is a pretty good card for this deck. Being able to, your opponent's trying to do an ignorant turn, or they're trying to turn skip you or something, that's fine. The Fucho gives you that chance to get back into the game while, basically having an ignorantly unaffected monster. And that's honestly the big thing that you want from this. And of course, I see this build is still playing the 1 copy of the Anti-Spell Fragrance. Honestly, losing a little bit of the anti-spells did hurt a little bit of the meta, but you can still have the 1 copy if you really need to. It's one of those things that if you see it, you see it. If you don't, well, Yu-Gi-Oh! And hey, it's our branded duelist. Sporting off 50 cards, by the way. That's a relatively huge number here. I do see that we are dropping in the Gimmick Puppet Lock as per usual. At this point in time, I think you have to rely on the Gimmick Puppet Lock. As much as people wanted this deck to kind of fade off into the distance, I think you no longer have a choice. I think you're kind of forced to rely on the Gimmick Puppet strategy to help you stay in the game. Now, one interesting thing here is this build is playing double. You hear me say that right? That is 2 copies of basic polymerization in this deck. I don't know how I feel about this, but I feel like this is one of those little innovations that you kind of look at out here and you're like, wow, You know, why were we not considering this much sooner? Well, I mean, hey, as long as this works, it's actually pretty good. Still sporting off the 2 Quem, the 2 Cartesias. Nothing's really changed in that department. And we are doing the 1 fusion duplication. Okay. Oh, hey, look. It's our Yubel player. Hello, Nightmare Throne. I'm still telling you, this card is absolutely bonkers. Now, this is the one thing I've liked about this particular list that we've seen, is just the ability to set rotation. You know, you have 2 field spells in your deck. You have the Nightmare Throne, and you have the Gates. You can hand your opponent the Gates. That's why you actually choose to play this, because you can banish and get a free extra draw if you really need to. So, you know, maybe you're clumping up those Dark Beckoning Beasts in your hand or something. You can go ahead and toss it, get another natural draw from the deck. Actually, it's pretty decent. I also see here that we are citing the 2 copies of Puppetry. Yes, the quick play spell card to force my opponent to lose things from their graveyard. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. This side deck feels very interesting. I like it. Still doing the Juggernaut Lady with the Gustav Max. Gotta love the gas. And we are playing the 1 copy of the Voldroth, the Bringer of Death. Yeah, nothing else really too spicy here, actually. And then, this is our pure Snake Eyes variant. Now, this is actually really cool because this build is playing Engage. We are maximizing on the gas here. Alright, so basically, you have kind of shaved down your Snake Eyes package to the bare minimum. Honestly, this should be enough to get you through every one of your combo lines, so you can kind of do your thing. You're also relying on droplets in here. A lot of board breaker cards with this deck. Even Enemy Controller here is going to act as a board breaker. Now, for your Engage, I mean, you are doing 2 Widow Anchors. Honestly, in a format like this, resolving this Widow Anchor to steal an opponent's monster might actually be kind of insane. I didn't think I would see any developments like this coming out here, but now that Engage is back, you know, more players can explore these option trees and try out some of these rather interesting builds, I would say. So I like that. Outside of that, okay, what else we got back here? We have some Tierlaments, So this is sporting off 50 cards, and I see that we are doing the Needlebug Nest shenanigans with the Masterful Mayakashi story. Yep, I feel like we've gotten to the point out here that we can test out the ability to turn skip my opponent. Wow, this feels very much like a blast from the past. I see we're also playing the 1 Vivid Tail in here. Your recurability on this is good. You'd also think maybe because, you know, we're playing so many cards that you might consider maybe upping the transaction rollback to 3. I feel like that's the one thing that I'm a little bit off about. You know, you want to try to make sure that you have the ability to use it. I don't know. I just find it a little bit weird that you're playing 50 cards and you only opted for 2 transaction rollbacks. But, okay. Outside of that, there's nothing really too out of the normal for this list. I feel like this looks just like paleo old stuff from back in the day. Okay. What else we got cooking back here? Our Raidraptor duelist. Now this is very refreshing here. I do see that this deck has chosen to actually opt in for the crossout designators in here, so you can basically call out anything punishing, aka this, aka this, aka this, you know, the imperm on maybe a key functional piece. I feel like a lot of this is going to come down to how your hands are going to sculpt in the very beginning phases of the game. I do see that we are playing the Mud Dragon down here, along with the triple super polymerizations, but we do have the Garua built in, so we don't have to hinder ourselves with our side decking choices to just bump in one of our little extra pieces along the way. Like I said, this is kind of cool. We've seen Raidraptor have a decent amount of success out here. It hasn't been a huge amount along the way, but it's enough that it has a good, successful track record. Yes, the boss monster selection. I love unaffected everything. And I see, so this is our repeat list that we saw earlier today, where you're still going to be using the Snake Eyes Diabellstar, toggling through those heavy lines of play. You do see the 1 anti-spell down here. And one other little side note, this build is playing the Doolittle Chimera, making sure that, hey, you know, you get all of your options that you really want to see. That is our breakdown for this event. Honestly, some of the most interesting stuff that I have had the chance to see so far, and I like what I'm seeing. Holy moly, what an interesting meta. Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.